What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. So once again, another camera comparison, this time between the iPhone 8 Plus and the newly released iPhone 11 Pro. Now, I've been doing all these comparisons with the iPhone 11 that I totally forgot to do it for the 11 Pro, so I kind of have to go back and do these ones, and there are a lot of differences even between the iPhone 11 and the 11 Pro, but even between the 8 Plus and 11 Pro, there are a lot of differences, don't get me wrong, and I'll kind of do my best to go into the details and everything, but the iPhone 8 Plus is still a really good camera. When I was taking the photos today, I was like, man, this is still a tremendous camera. It still has almost most of the features that the iPhone 11 Pro camera has. And if you have an 8 Plus, I wouldn't be looking at this comparison to being like, oh my god, my phone is outdated. Yes, the 11 Pro's photos for the most part are better in probably every single way, but there's still some ways that the 8 Plus camera still is like really good. With the iPhone 11 Pro, you do get that additional ultra-wide sensor that the iPhone 8 Plus doesn't have and will never get. That is a hardware feature. That's not something a software feature can go and like you can update to it. All cameras are 12 megapixels on both phones, but I have been seeing that with the iPhone 11 series, including the 11 Pro, there's almost always more detail in those photos, which is super awesome because that's almost always software and the improvements with the software themselves, which is really cool and I love seeing that. So with all that aside, let's go ahead and look at the first image. So for this whole entire comparison, the iPhone 8 Plus images will be on the left, the iPhone 11 Pro images will be on the right, and I let the photos autofocus. I didn't like have to focus or anything like that. All these are in the same lighting conditions, everything. As you can see, sometimes I do kind of mess up a little bit, and they're not exactly at like the same angle and everything, but for the most part they are, and like you can even see from this first image there is quite a bit of difference. So on the left you can see with the iPhone 8 Plus, the whole entire image looks a little bit darker, the greens look a little bit darker as well, whereas on the 11 Pro you can see that the image does pop out quite a bit. So with the iPhone 11 Pro you can see the grass looks greener, the grass is always greener on the other side, you know what I mean? And even looking at like the base or the middle of this image, I mean look at that, the grass is almost always like greener, and you get to see a little bit more of the vase or the pot itself. On here it looks a little bit too dark. It's not completely bad either. If you weren't comparing them side by side, you look at both images and be like, wow, they're really good. Even looking at the iMac on top and looking more so at the image and the grass, you can see again a little bit sharper and a little bit more detailed on the 11 Pro as well. And if I just go ahead and zoom in as much as I can into this specific leaf, you can see again it seems to me that there's less noise overall on the 11 Pro image than on the iPhone 8 Plus image, but that's kind of going into a little bit more detail here. But overall for this first image, definitely the 11 Pro wins. Now this next image, again, kind of a little bit two different angles, but the same thing. Looking at the camera lens itself, you can see that, in my opinion, as you can see, dude, the 11 Pro definitely seems to be much more darker and much sharper, in my opinion. The 11 Pro, as you can see these titles and this text a little bit clearer. On the 8 Plus seems to be a little bit, washed out a little bit. Not completely horrible, but look at that text. I mean, it doesn't really get much more clear than that. Also, the lens itself seems a little bit, I don't know, noisier or washed out. On the 11 Pro, it seems much darker and much more, I guess, in focus. That's the best way I can put it. Even looking at the desk itself, looks much noisier and grayer. On the iPhone 11 Pro, again, looks much more in focus and much lighter as well. Looking on this next image, you can see two different lighting situations. I mean, the same lighting situation, but two different ways that the phones interpret it. Now, on the 8 Plus, you can see that it's not a bad image, but you can see it's kind of darker overall. There's really not too many things you can see especially here. It's kind of hard to make out that Canon thing. Everything else seems to be about the same though, but as you can see on the 11 Pro image, you can see a lot more of that darkened Canon logo, which kind of goes to show how much the 11 Pro does better in the lighting conditions. So in darker conditions, it does much better. Kind of looking at the camera lens up top itself, you can see again, looks much sharper on the 11 Pro. However, I do kind of like how the 8 Plus seems to be a little bit darker. So I think it's sharper on the 11 Pro, but it seems to be a little bit darker here, and I kind of do like that effect. But that Canon logo is the one thing that really surprises me. I mean, look at that. That's a pretty big difference, I don't think it could be any more night and day here, you know what I mean? So that's that image right there. If you kind of look at the grassy side on the other side, you can see how the 8 Plus kind of overexposed that specific part. It seems to be like a lot of light bleeding in that situation. On the iPhone 11 Pro, it seems to be a lot more, does a lot better job with that lighting. So this next photo honestly kind of surprised me because in a lot of ways the 8 Plus I think looks kind of cool, but the 11 Pro also looks kind of cool here. Now in reality, if you look at the desk itself, the details in the desk and everything look much better on the iPhone 11 Pro. As you can see, you're kind of able to make out much more of those grains. On the 8 Plus, once you start zooming in, it doesn't really get as noisy as I thought I was going to get. If I go and zoom in a little bit more, I honestly, I don't even know what I'm doing at this point, but between these two, it's kind of interesting to see how both these phones kind of interpret the brown desk. I feel like in reality, the 8 Plus did a better job at showing the actual color, but the 11 Pro, I kind of do like that too. So looking at the iPad itself, if we go into that corner, you can see it kind of looks a little bit better on the iPhone 11 Pro, I think. A little bit less noisy. You can see a little bit more of the screen protector here, but that could be just the lighting condition. But overall, very similar photos. Now again, this photo is taken in kind of darker lighting conditions, and again, you can see how the 11 Pro did a better job in this darker situation. So looking at the sock itself, you can see as soon as I zoom into that little circle thing, look how much brighter the whites are and how much more detailed the darks are. So as you can see, the whites are much whiter on the iPhone 11 Pro. Again, even looking at the sock up there, look at the differences here, pretty different. All the whites seem a little bit yellow on the older iPhones that I noticed that I was comparing to. And once you kind of go into the desk thing, there's not a humongous difference right out the gate, but as soon as I was kind of moving around them and looking at them, I was able to see that there's quite a bit of difference, a lot more noise in my opinion on the iPhone 8 Plus photo in these darker images. Now if I go ahead and zoom into like the tip of this specific sock, you can see a pretty big difference here too. I mean, look at how much more detail you're getting and this fuzziness going on here that you can still see. On the 8 Plus, you can see it looks pretty weird and it looks pretty washed out and just dirty in my opinion. So that's a pretty big difference right there. So between these, I think the 11 Pro wins here too. Looking on this next photo of this Rubik's Cube, you can see a lot of different things going on. So in the middle with the Rubik's Cube, you can see that I think the 11 Pro did a better job at kind of showing off these images and highlighting them. If we look at those two whites right there, you can see, you might not be able to see a complete difference right out the gate, but I do kind of am able to tell by looking at the screens themselves that the iPhone 11 Pro did a better job at kind of showing off that specific white. The greens look almost the same, almost all the other colors look the same, but as a whole, the image kind of pops out a little bit more. But as I was looking at it, I was looking at the Galaxy S5 in the background, and I was looking at it and I was like, wow, the Galaxy S5 seems to be a lot more blurred out on the iPhone 11 Pro than on the iPhone 8 Plus. So the bokeh effect, I think, is a lot better on the iPhone 11 Pro. As you can see, you can still kind of make out that Samsung logo, whereas on the 11 Pro, it's completely blurred out, which is what you kind of want. You want the focus to be the center of the photo, and the iPhone 11 Pro did a better job of blurring out the background versus the iPhone 8 Plus here. Now this next photo is portrait mode on both of these phones, and as you can see, what's interesting though is on the 11 Pro, you have the ability to kind of be closer to the subject and still take the same photo, versus the iPhone 8 Plus, you kind of have to walk out a little bit, and I think that has a lot to do with the telephoto lens on the 8 Plus and the ultra wide sensor on the 11 Pro. So you can be closer to a subject on the iPhone 11 Pro and take the same portrait mode photo than you could on the iPhone 8 Plus. Looking at the image themselves, they look kind of the same. The iPhone 11 Pro definitely looks a lot more lighter in my opinion, a lot more brighter, which is really nice. The iPhone 8 Plus image looks pretty dark in my opinion. Now this is kind of creepy, but I'm trying to showcase to you guys the amount of detail going on. So if I zoom into this specific eye, some people might like the iPhone 8 Plus photo, but look at the darkness going on here. Some people might like it, but I think the iPhone 11 Pro did a better job. You're able to see more of what's going on really. I did this in my other video too, and I want to do it again. I zoomed into the ear. Interestingly enough, the ear I think looks better on the iPhone 11 Pro. But also if you look above the ear, you can see a lot more of the detail of what's going on versus the iPhone 8 Plus. You can't really tell what's going on here, which some people might like it. I think this is beyond blurring. I think this is just overexposing that the iPhone 8 Plus loves doing. So between here, I think the iPhone 11 Pro wins again. Now this is just a photo of the Nintendo Switch, and interestingly enough, if you look at the screen and everything, not a bad photo on the iPhone 8 Plus, but then you start looking at the 11 Pro and look how many more details you're able to pick up on the screen, look how many more dust particles, and even looking at the controller itself or the Joy-Con, how much better that looks on the iPhone 11 Pro. You know, it looks much brighter in my opinion, and it looks more accurate too. This one looks like the better image. This one kind of looks a little bit washed out in my opinion. Now this next photo was taken in pretty bad lighting. It was just like the staircase. And as you can see, a lot darker and a lot more washed out in yellow on the iPhone 8 Plus, whereas it's a lot more brighter on the iPhone 11 Pro. Now this photo was taken outside, and you can see again, man, like iPhone 8 Plus photo looks great, but the iPhone 11 Pro photo looks so much better. If I go and zoom into this specific leaf, you can see the details are a lot more popping on the iPhone 11 Pro in my opinion. If I go and zoom into like the tip of this specific leaf, you can see again, look how much more detail there is on the iPhone 11 Pro photo. It looks a lot more in detail. The iPhone 8 Plus looks a lot more pixelated in my opinion, and a lot more washed out. Even in the background, like I stated, look how much more blur effect you're getting on the iPhone 8 Plus, on the iPhone 11 Pro, versus the iPhone 8 Plus. There's just not that much blur effect going on, you know? Now this photo I wanted to demonstrate ultra wide mode, so taken at the same exact distance on the iPhone 8 Plus, you can see, look how much you're getting into a photo versus on the iPhone 11 Pro. Look how much of that ultra wide sensor is being used. You're getting so much more in a photo, which is awesome. Again, this was another photo. I just want to see how these phones kind of interpret the brown. And again, you can see they're almost the same kind of. And this one is a lot more apparent versus like the iPhone 11, which the iPhone 11 loves doing like way more brown than it needs to. This was another photo taking of the leaves, and this one, you know, I noticed with the 11 Pro, it doesn't do a lot over filtering like the iPhone 11 does. So looking at these photos, like in the middle, for example, look at these leaves. Not as crazy of a difference as you might expect, but once you kind of start looking at the background of the deck, for example, you can see how the iPhone 11 Pro kind of shows a lot more detail in the specific grains of the wood versus the iPhone 8 Plus. You can see it's kind of darkening the image overall. It's not a bad image, but definitely, you know, it's a lot better on the 11 Pro. This is another one taken of the deck, and you can see again almost the same photo, but the iPhone 11 Pro did a better job. You can see how this kind of looks a little bit blurry, and it kind of gets a little bit overexposed or kind of blurry up there. The iPhone 11 Pro did a really good job at kind of showcasing the whole entire thing throughout the beginning and the end. So you can see a lot more, like if I zoom into this specific part, you can see how it was kind of, it's not even blurry, but it's just kind of noisy here, where it's a lot more in focus here, which is really nice. The leaves on the sides, you can see a lot more noisier here. iPhone 11 Pro is less noisier. Now this photo of the lamp in a kind of a darker condition, you can see again, the iPhone 8 Plus seems a lot more darker. The iPhone 11 Pro seems a lot more lighter, which is nice. Now this photo of the little flower pot thing, sorry all the flowers are dead, it's that time of the year. But you can see again that the flower looks a lot more in focus and a lot brighter. iPhone 8 Plus doesn't look too good. The background of the pot looks a lot more greener on the iPhone 11 Pro versus the 8 Plus, so pretty big difference right there as well. And again, just another photo of the pot, and again you can see iPhone 11 Pro looks a lot more brighter, iPhone 8 Plus looks a lot more darker, so to each their own, but I definitely do think the 11 Pro did a better job in this camera test. Now this last photo, I just wanted to show you guys the telephoto mode, and I just zoomed in the photo as much as I could on both sensors, and you can see that they're both kind of look the same, honestly. But if I zoom into the leaves, you can see again the iPhone 11 Pro did a better job at kind of highlighting these leaves. They look a little bit darker on the iPhone 8 Plus and much lighter and brighter on the iPhone 11 Pro. Looking at the leaves themselves, they look kind of better overall on the iPhone 11 Pro as well. And to kind of sum up this whole entire comparison, dude, both phones are great. Like I stated, iPhone 8 Plus is very good still, but the iPhone 11 Pro takes the cake here. It's a much better sensor overall. I still have love for the 8 Plus, but if you can, getting an iPhone 8 Plus, even just for the camera quality themselves, is a pretty big upgrade in my opinion. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it would mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.